I have access to the power. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power every minute, every hour. I have access to the power within me. Do you remember that song? Yeah, I wasn't pointing for me to only sing. I was pointing because I have it within me. But you have it within you too, right? I have access to the power within me again. I have access to the power within me every minute, hour. I have access to the power every minute, every hour. I have access to the power within me. Whenever troubles surround me and I just can't find my way, I close my eyes, I go inside, and from somewhere within me, I raise my voice and say, I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power every minute, every hour. I have access to the power within me. I used to think I was separate and had to pray to someone above. But now I know inside is flowing the never-ending source of infinite love. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power within me. I have access to the power every minute, every hour. I have access to the power within me. Repeat after me. I got the power. I got the power. I got the power. You got the power. Tell your neighbor, you got the power. You got the power. We got the power. We got the power. We got the power. I've got the power. Yeah. I've got the power within me. I have access to the power within me. It's an important message for me, and we're going to talk about why. Good morning. I'm going to even move this over here a little bit. So, as I've told you, I've been doing a lot of reading about from Eric Butterworth, right? So this book is in the back there on the little table underneath the mirror. There's the purple hardback version. All right, you can borrow this from the church. We have about 3 or 4 left over there. And there's also new paperback versions, right, that I have bought, and you can reimburse the church for $10, and you can own your own. All right, this is Eric Butterworth's Unity, A Quest for Truth. Eric Butterworth was a Unity minister, born in 1928, ordained in like 58, somewhere around that time period, longtime minister of New York City's Unity Church. And you've heard me say this before, but I like to bring it up again. And he actually served in Pittsburgh, and Judith, your husband, studied with him, right? He is a very well-known, renowned, revered Unity minister and author, like the real deal, right? And of course, Charles Fillmore, right? And Myrtle, like we're on Myrtle Street. Did you ever notice that? Yeah. I've always wanted to ask, by the way, did they name the street after they built the church? No, did you find the property because it was on Myrtle? It was just a coincidence, right? Divine coincidence. All right. So Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, and here we are on Myrtle Street. They started Unity. And so I'm doing a lot more and more reading, digging in, because as I've told you, I'm not a Unity minister, but I've been going to Unity churches for a long time. And I also go to CSL churches and New Thought, all kinds of those things. They all resonate with me. But you're sitting, I'm standing in a Unity church. And it's important that we know what the Unity principles are. So that's why, for one thing, we've been doing all 5 of the Unity principles lately, right? Not just one, but just so we have an idea, where are we coming from, right? And a lot of these go back and forth. I was looking into one of the churches that Ari also attends, and I was like, wow, look, the first 2 principles of their thing are the exact same 2 principles of Unity. So there's just so much crossover, right? In chapter 3 of Quest for Truth, and I really do recommend this, written in the 1960s and still very, very present today, still so good today, and progressive, actually. Who knew, right? Those 60s people, they were Unity, chapter 3, Eric Butterworth, he writes, unity is a door to self-discovery for those who are curious, who want to know more of the meaning of the world around us and within us. Unity is a pathway to understanding for those who just cannot accept final answers and precast spirituality. Look at that. Right there, he's telling us that unity is a door opening. It's not something that is stuck. It's not something that is stagnant, right? This is why unity resonated with me and still does. Because it's everything. It's a unity. It's uniting all the different belief systems. It's not just one. It's not just those 5 principles. We talked in our board meeting recently, what is the future of the church, this church and the church? And we talked about unity plus. Oh, the eyes lit up. Isn't that exciting? It's not just unity, it's unity plus. It's all the things that we have brought in with us from the past, whether you were raised Catholic, Pentecostal, or Baptist, or whether you were raised atheist, you bring it all with you, right? It's part of your formations, and you bring it to this place, and you don't stop there. Charlotte, you and I have talked about that too, right? We've talked about, we can get stuck. We could just say, well, this is it. I know my 5 principles, and I go to church every Sunday, and that's it. That's all I need. Even Eric Butterworth is saying, no. It's for you if you just can't accept final answers. It's not Jeopardy. Is that your final? Wait, that's the wrong show, isn't it? It's not your final answer. Oh, who wants to be a millionaire? Is that your final answer? No, it's not the final answer. We are constantly, because God is infinite, right? God is ever expanding, and so should we. So should our understanding of God. How can we ever have I'm getting excited. Whoo, and it's only not even 11 o'clock, and I'm way off my script already. Our understanding of God has to be as infinite as God is. That means we're always, always growing. That's the exciting part for me. And that is how we come together as a group of people from all different backgrounds into this church that happens to be called Unity, right? But we all bring our ever expanding. Some of us are fine. We're like, I've done my work. I'm good. My life is great. And some of us are still looking to get deeper and deeper. And this is the place for you no matter what. I'm only on paragraph 2 and I have 20. Eric also writes, the purpose of the church is not to make you a convert to a particular creed and a member of a particular organization. That's important. That's important to me. The true purpose of the Unity movement or the Unity Church is to help you, as Paul said in his letter to the Romans, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. That goes back a long way. Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. My mind needs constant renewal. I get stuck in some old stories. When I was a young boy, my dad was very strict and had some serious anger management issues. And, because I don't like the word but, and he was infinitely loving to his children. Just anger management and loving. So those things I learned as an adult, they can coexist. At the time I thought, how can that be? Why are you so mean? They coexist, right? The one thing, as I grew to be a teenager, and I'm discovering myself, who I am, what I'm not, who I'm not, what I want to be, he had this to say to me. He said, you could spend the rest of your life trying to please me, and that's how long it might take you. Or you can spend the rest of your life pleasing yourself. You can be anything you want to be. Anything you want to be. The sky is the limit. I didn't know, I'll try not to get emotional, I didn't know until after he was gone what more depth there was to that. I figured out, I thought he meant career-wise, right? You can be anything. You don't have to be an athlete. He was very sports-minded, right? You don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to be a coal miner like he was. I could be a musician. I could go and work on Broadway. I could go sing for Hollywood movies. Check, check. But I also learned, or I'm still trying to learn, I can be anything I want to be. Does that mean I can be happy? I can be loved, lovable. I can be content. It's so much more than what I could be or do as a living, right? And I'm still learning that. There are still things that I can be. I learned then that the sky is not the limit. My belief system is my limit, right? We're not limited by the sky, we're limited by our beliefs. Charles Fillmore, who with his wife Myrtle were the founders of Unity in 1889, 1890s. He wrote that the greatest gift to humankind is the power of thought, because through it, we have direct access, connection to the mind of God. That's where Unity starts, with that kind of principle, that kind of teaching, that philosophy. Our greatest gift is not a man who was executed on a cross 2,000 and some years ago. That's not the greatest gift. The greatest gift is our power of thought to connect with the mind of God. That's what sets us apart from all other beings, right? It boils down to, you are what you think. You are what you think. What do I think? Do I think that I'm a victim of mean kids and bad parenting? Do I think that I'm an unlucky person? Do I think that others always seem to get it better than I do? What do you think? What are you thinking underneath all of this stuff? What runs through your mind? Is it, I'm old? Is it, I have one ailment after another, 6, 7, 8 medical conditions? I remember sitting on a bus years ago, and this guy just went on and on after one medical condition. That's all he wanted to talk about. That's what was in his mind, is everything that was wrong with him. Is it running through, what are you thinking? Is it running through your mind that you're unlovable? That you're unloved? That you're not worthy? I grew up in a little tiny town, a coal mining town in Western Pennsylvania. And I didn't even grow up in the town. I grew up like on a country road a mile away from the nearest town. That town had 1,000 people and a post office and an elementary school. But I'm on this country road of 12 houses, right? And then 5 more miles away was, the high school and the grocery stores, right? But I'm out there, and our little neighborhood was called Grafton. I think 100 years before that, it used to be actually a small town, but flood control and blah, blah, blah. So I'm from Grafton. That's the 12 houses, right? And the whole community of this area was not an economically lifted area, right? But even within that, there were subsects. We knew there was almost like a class system, right? Even like we were all like lower middle class to lower, right? And still within that, there seemed to be a class system. And I knew growing up, I was a Huffman. That means your dad was a coal miner and you're from Grafton, right? Now, that consciousness, I wasn't a Thompson from the Smith Plan in the nice part of town, or a Wilson with the pool in the backyard. I wasn't a Bonarigo at the Catholic Church. No, I was a Huffman from Grafton. As an adult, I go on this cruise. So my best friend, you've heard me talk about my best friend, Brian, right? We grew up. He's from Blairsville too, right? He is from further out in the country than I am, but he was a Cochrane, and his dad, was I don't know, he was a land surveyor or something like that. It was different. But we went on a cruise together several months ago, right? We went over to Italy, and Brian picked out his cabin, I picked out my cabin, and we go to the travel agent, and there are specials to be had in this, and somehow Brian gets these specials, and he gets an upgrade to his cabin, but not me. I'm a Huffman from Grafton. No, I get what I paid for. Inside cabin, no specials, no upgrades, We joked about it, but there's truth in that. I have another friend, we call it TIJ. There's truth in jest. You joke about something, but you're like, yeah, I'm joking because it's a little true. But if I can make light of it, it makes it less painful, right? TIJ, truth in jest. So what was interesting is, I'm 52. I've known Brian since I was 12. For 40 years plus, I'm still carrying the message that I'm a Huffman from Grafton, and that somehow means something bad, that I don't deserve, that I'm never going to be worthy as a Cochrane or a Wilson or a Thompson or a Bonarigo. What is that? You know what it is? It's thought. It's my consciousness, isn't it? That's how powerful our thoughts are. Do you have any? Yeah, you don't have to say them, it's okay. I'll bare my soul, you can sit there safely, all right? It's all good. We'll talk back in the back, right? In the book of Joshua, chapter 24, verse 15 says, "Choose this day whom you will serve." There's a Native American tale that talks about the good wolf and the bad wolf that lives inside each of us, right? Which one are you going to feed? Whom will you serve? Which wolf will you feed? Think about that each day, right? When I stand in my own power and confidence as a musician, when I know who I am and I feel confident, and then I'm a better musician in that moment. And there are times when I'm around some colleagues in New York or Los Angeles, and I'm like, oh, they're better than I am. And what happens is I screw up. And I'm not that good that day because I have conditioned my consciousness that I am not as good as someone else. I've let the power of thought, I've lost my confidence, right? The same thing can happen. I might put on a certain outfit and step in front of the mirror and be like, oh, damn, you look good. And there are times when I'll be like, you better put a vest over that because your belly's hanging over your belt. Lots of recognition I'm hearing. We have confidence based on our thoughts, don't we? It's given to us, we think, by our parents. And it is good when you have a supportive upbringing, when you have teachers or adults when you're a child, and you have people who believe in you. And it's not so great if you don't. But we're adults now, most of us, 99.9% of us here are adults now, right? Confidence isn't something that someone can give us anymore. Confidence is something we can only give ourselves. We can only give ourselves that confidence. We can only look in the mirror at ourselves and say, damn, you look good. It's said that one of the best methods for turning around our thoughts and thought training is prayer. Prayer. Prayer is a bit of a trigger word for me because I haven't understood it and I still don't think I understand it. I think I'll never understand it. I get there and then I'm like, what is it? I'm getting there. And here's why and how. I was raised in a very, very fundamentalist church, and prayer meant asking the bearded man up there for something. It meant requesting things, complimenting him and telling him how great he was. And if I were worthy, would you please give me this? That was the version I grew up with. And I grew into adulthood and said, that doesn't work for me. What is prayer? And I come into Unity and to Centers for Spiritual Living, and prayer is affirmation. Prayer is thought, and thought is prayer. Prayer is affirmation, and affirmation is prayer. It's not begging or asking. It's claiming and accepting. Eric Butterworth writes, contemporary prayer, today's prayer, is largely a modification of the prayer concepts of pre-Christian days, a plea to a Superman sort of God somewhere off in the skies. Yeah. It is usually a wordy and emotional plea to God to have mercy or to grant a request, along with a reminder that he is omnipotent. This is Eric Butterworth's writing in 1965. This is not Brent Allen Huffman writing this in 2022, right? This is someone, a leader in the Unity movement, telling us what prayer is and what prayer isn't. And yet somehow here we are still walking into some of these Unity churches, right? And still offering up the old kind of prayer. Get this book, folks. Get this book and see where Unity started, and get clear what prayer is and what prayer isn't. It's, as I said, it's not begging or asking. It is claiming and accepting. It's not, I want, I wish, I hope. It's, I am. It's not help me, guide me, heal me, give me. It's, I am helped, I am healed, I am guided, I have all that I seek. That is prayer. That is affirmative prayer, and that is what we believe in. That is the very basis of the Unity teachings. Prayer is concentration and manifesting all the good in our lives. It's more than a memorized series of words as a ritual or a custom. Prayer is an inner feeling and sincerity. Inner feeling and sincerity. Prayer is the practical application of our spirituality, right? Practical. And you can't have practical unless you practice, right? We have to practice this every single day. Practice this. Reading a book about golf does not make you a golfer. Watching HD TV about how to remodel a house does not make you a contractor. And watching Top Chef on TV doesn't make you a chef. In fact, you don't even get to taste the food. Reading about spirituality and reciting mindlessly things that are just put in front of you doesn't make you a more spiritual being. It doesn't lift you to a higher consciousness. We have to practice it. Now, going to those five principles, the last three of them are what we're talking about, right? The power of thought. We create our own experiences through our thinking, right? Number 4, help me out. Number 4, prayer and meditation, right? What is prayer? It's affirmative prayer. And number 5, you've got to live it. You've got to practice all of it. You can't just recite the first 4, right? So what does that mean to you on a daily basis? We must be constantly practicing our gratitude. We must eliminate negative thoughts. Like negative thoughts, they come into our mind before we even know it. They are so stealthy, right? They just slip right in there, and before you know it, you're like ripping on someone because their dress doesn't fit them well, or because they didn't show up to church, or because they do this or they do that, right? Or we're ripping on ourselves. Those negative thoughts creep in when we've got to root them out. When you're walking down the street and you've got like a pebble in your shoe, you take off your shoe and you take the pebble out, right? You're not going to just, my shoe's off. You're not going to just keep walking with that pebble, right? It's going to be painful and you're going to end up with a blister. Take the pebble out. But you have to know that the pebble is there. You have to be that Princess and the Pea. Do you remember that story? Or there was a Broadway musical made of it called Once Upon a Mattress, starring Carol Burnett, right? All those layers of mattresses, and she, because they wanted to prove that she was a princess, and there's a pea underneath it, right? You have to find the pea under your mattress, because the pea is blocking your peace. We can only be peaceful when we get rid of those negative thoughts. They're in us. I hear them in myself every day. I hear them in most of my friends every day, my family, and I hear them from congregants, from some of you. There's always something that's always going to come in and just make us less connected with the highest version of ourselves. I have that on my podium at the shows that I conduct. I have HVM, highest version of myself. Always remembering, how can I get to that place? How can I exude that? How can I be that, the highest version of myself? A wise friend once told me, even if you never, ever again close your eyes and pray and ask to an imaginary being, even if you never do that again, you can still live your life full of prayer. Because everything you say is a prayer. Everything you think is a prayer. So be careful. Be careful of what you say. Be careful of what you think. Be careful of what you do. Because it's all messaging. It all has a result, right? If I eat fries and pizza all my life, I'm creating a result, right? I'm creating a lifestyle, a body, a health situation. Everything we say, we do has a result, right? Everything we say, think, or do is a prayer. It is creative. What are you thinking? What are you doing? What are you saying? Not just at the best times, not when you're really just on it, but what about those other times? The minute something goes wrong in your life, that's the time to ask. It's easy to ask when things are going well. It's a lot harder when things aren't going so well to ask ourselves, how did I create this? What's my part in it? Where was my thinking that led to this situation? What was my doing or not doing, which is doing, right, that led to this situation? There's no blame game here, folks. Our actions are our prayers. Our thoughts, our words. It's up to us to choose the life that we want to live. And we do that by choosing and changing our thoughts. We choose the life we want by choosing and changing our actions. We choose the world that we want by choosing and changing our thoughts. Every thought is our prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our words are prayers, and we are always praying. Our words are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of thankfulness, and know the answer is always there. And every word becomes a prayer. What are your thoughts right now? The deep thoughts, the ones that underlie. Root them out. Let them go. Cast them aside like that pebble. And replace them now with the thoughts of how you'd like your life to be. A life of abundance, of prosperity. A life of love, of feeling loved. A life of patience, acceptance of other people, of gratitude. Your thoughts are prayers, and you are always praying. Your thoughts are prayers. Take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a place of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Every thought becomes a prayer. Every word becomes a prayer. Every deed becomes a prayer. Every thought becomes your prayer. What are you thinking? What are you doing every day? What are you thinking? What are you saying every day? What am I thinking? What am I saying? It's a prayer. Everything is a prayer.